Clocktower, 1995. In 1985, an Italian named Dario Argento directed a horror film by the name of Phenomena, later released as Creepers in the US. It starred a young Jennifer Connelly, who arrived at an eerie Swiss boarding school where the students are being butchered by a serial killer. While not official canon, Clocktower was famously based on Phenomena, which is why it should be no surprise that the protagonist of Clocktower is called Jennifer, looks like Jennifer, and you guessed it, arrives at a creepy-ass gothic mansion, this time in Norway, where people start getting butchered. A like, or better yet a subscribe, is literally the currency that allows YouTube to pay me, so a little click from you is a massive win for me. Thank you so much. So Jennifer's been adopted along with 3 other girls, Laura, Anne and Lottie, and is brought home by Ms. Mary, who shortly after depositing them in a living room disappears to find their surrogate father. After she fails to return, Jennifer agrees to go look for her, which slowly starts to reveal both a magnificent but also strangely decrepit and run-down building. You're not actually exploring for very long at all before the iconic antagonist makes his first appearance, a deformed little boy known only as Scissor Man. Despite his small stature and incredibly awkward weapon, he dispatches your first sister with ease, crashing through the friggin' ceiling and impaling her after like a 2-story drop, and therein you're forced to engage in your first chase. Although the game is based in the 1990s, sometimes it feels a little bit more like the 1890s, specifically in the way that poor Jennifer gets tired out if she runs for more than a few seconds, as indicated by the colour of her picture, and then is forced to collapse on the floor in despair like something out of Pride and Prejudice. She just sort of sits there for a while and her picture changes colour again. Of course, this is done to ramp up the tension, which it does very well, forcing you to keep your finger off that sprint button until entirely necessary, as it will be essential for when Scissor Man turns up. And turn up he will. When he confronts you, Jennifer gets into a panic, and depending on her health, she might trip or fall, which is what eventually will get her killed. And as she can't fight Scissor Man, her only defense is to find hiding spots throughout the mansion, or use environmental traps. A concept which is now widely used in today's scariest of horror games. Scissor Man also doesn't let up and won't be stopped by things like doors and ladders, and follows you room to room until you deal with him in some manner or other. And as I said, this is of course no longer a new concept, but at the time it would force you as a player to constantly take note of which room you were in, which room had potential hiding places, and how quickly you could get back to that room without running into a dead end. Clocktower is a fascinating product of the times, in that it is predominantly a point-and-click adventure, but forces tension on the player through moments of frantic action. And despite the clunky movement system requires you to make hasty decisions, namely picking the right door, which would constantly test your memory and your situational awareness. Ultimately, the story is one of perseverance and courage, which leads to the uncovering of Jennifer's connection to the horror, and unravelling the mystery that plagues the house. And, of course, taking out all the antagonists one by one. There are something like 9 different endings, 3 of which are core, the main differences being who you can save along your journey, the most important of whom is revealed at the end as being your sister. Excitingly, there was a sequel the following year, once again called Clocktower and once again directed by Kono, but this time using the PS1's new 3D capabilities to excellent effect and favourable reviews. However, from this point forward, Kono departed the team, which may have explained the flawed gameplay of the following entry, which is generally blamed on a poorly implemented dual personality mechanic and lackluster story. In 2002, we then got Clocktower 3, whose visual aesthetic and gritty vibe might have been a step back in the right direction, but its simplistic puzzles and comically overacted characters seeped away the last of its strongest selling point. That being how damn tense and scary the original was when compared to other horror games on the market at the time.
Melissa, where are you?
The same team then went on to create a spiritual successor called Haunting Ground in 2005, which was rumoured to be a Clocktower 4 beta that was rebranded. And among some interesting concepts, shall we say, it introduced Huey the Alsatian, who after saving him would go on to aid you against the game's various enemies. Finally, in 2016, a Kickstarter campaign led to the creation of a game called NightCry. Yet another spiritual successor to Clocktower, this time it was helmed once again by Hifumi Kono himself, and once again featured a scissor-wielding antagonist, with monster designing duties being in the hands of Masahiro Ito, the absolute legend who himself designed Pyramid Head amongst various other Silent Hill antagonists. The story took place on a suitably isolated cruise ship and featured multiple protagonists, each with their own stories that would come together to form the larger narrative.
Something inside here is grabbing my hand!
Oh, Harry, the Gregory Peck Act is a bit outdated, don't you think?
However, despite the intriguing premise, clunky controls and a poorly constructed story, which is so often indicative of an overambitious and underfunded project, proved that simply having the main man back at the helm wasn't enough to return the series to its greatness.
Wait! This can't be! No! No! This can't be! Wait! No! Wait! No! Wait!
And if you're wondering where this stellar voice acting work came from, it was none other than Barry Gjerde, who actually provided the voice for Barry in the original Resident Evil game.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
The fact that they would bring any voice actor back from the original Resident Evil series pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this production. Sequels losing their way is a tale as old as time, but fortunately the game industry seems to be going through a phase of rebooting or remaking games right now, and Clocktower is no exception. Limited Run Games, an organisation behind a number of impressive remasters, will be using their Carbon engine to bring us a new edition of Clocktower that retains the authentic gameplay, graphics, and sound of the original, while also adding modern features and enhancements, which include a new vocal theme song performed by Mary McGlynn of the Silent Hill series, a new animated opening, motion comic cutscenes before and after the game, multiple language options, and a bunch more. Considering how painful old school pixel art games can be to play these days, I for one am very much looking forward to this release so that I might return to the infamous and haunted Clocktower.